Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. And welcome to episode 202 of the English with Kirsty podcast. We've got something a bit different for you today, but before I start, I just wanted to make a quick announcement or a reminder, and that is that for anyone listening in August 2022, the English with Kirsty Conversation Club is starting in September. So if you haven't heard of this, we have 3 groups. One is for entrepreneurs and business owners, one is for employees, and one is for general conversation. And the idea is to give you an opportunity to speak English, to practice speaking English with other people. It's for people who maybe feel a bit nervous about speaking English at work or with friends. And so it's to give you the chance to do that in an atmosphere that's welcoming and that will help you to improve your confidence and your speaking skills in English. So if that's something that you would like to find out more about, I'll add the link to the show notes page, but you can also go to englishwithkirsty.com/conversations. And you can also send me a message if you have any questions about the online meetings that we'll be holding for the club. So that's the announcement. And today I'd like to welcome back Carol. I think, I'm not sure which episode it was, but it was a couple of episodes ago where I interviewed Carol about her new app and about her techniques for improving our memories and ability to learn new information. And Carol's back, but this time she's here to interview me. So I don't know what she's going to ask. We'll find that out together. But it's great to see you again, Carol, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Hello. Yeah, I'm really happy to be back here with this new challenge, because it is a challenge, and I'm interviewing you today, and we have no plan.
We don't. It's a surprise.
Yes, but I actually ask you if this will be a good idea, because I really think that people want to know more about you, and because I've been knowing a bit more about you, and I want to know more. So I think, well, more people will be in the same situation, and we want to hear about your stories and what you've been up to lately. That I think is really interesting, like the conference that you went to in Vienna. So
that was fun.
Please, yes. Can you tell us more about it? Because that was a really huge challenge that you took, and you went out of your comfort zone completely, isn't it?
Yeah, because it was my first time presenting in German. I mean, I use German a lot with my customers, and I've taught some beginner classes of English in German. So it's something that it's a language that I use and feel more comfortable with, but I haven't presented at a conference before. And a couple of months ago, I received an email from somebody that I'd known 10 years ago. So we hadn't kept in touch. I did a course 10 years ago, a German course, and then she remembered me and looked for me on the internet. I've changed my name since then, so she managed to find me. And asked if I would help to run a workshop at a conference for German teachers. And they were already running the workshop, but they wanted somebody to come and assist with that who knows about inclusion in the language classroom, either as a teacher or as a learner, with a focus on visual impairment. And I can talk about that. It's not something I do as my main job, but it's something that I have experience with. So I agreed. And was quite nervous because it would be in German. It would be a group. I didn't know at the beginning how big our group would be. We found out a bit later at the beginning. We knew it was full, but we didn't know how many people would be in the workshop. And it would all be in German. So the other part of that was also that it would be spontaneous. You know, there'll be questions and answers. And in the end, we ran it as an interview session rather than a structured presentation. And it was a really good experience. I'm glad I went. I'm glad I took the challenge. But yeah, before that, I was quite nervous because I think every time you do something new, it's unknown, it's different, and you think about all the possible things that could go wrong. But most of the time they don't. That's just a story we tell ourselves that maybe we're not good enough at the language, or that we won't know the answer to something. But usually the truth is better than we think when we're worrying
Yes.
about it before the event.
And can I ask you, because this is something, you know, as you said, really challenging, completely new for you, and as you said, it was not that structured, so you could not prepare in advance as much as if it was just a regular presentation. So what made you think, yes, I can do it? Because I imagine you were evaluating different options and thinking, oh, this is not, or so can you take us through your thinking process, how you decided, yes, I am going to do it, I think I can make it?
At first I just committed myself because I thought it would be a good thing to do, and I knew that if I say yes, I wouldn't back out, because I keep to what my promises. So at the beginning, I was very much a logical thing, thinking, okay, this, I can contribute something here. I think it will be a good opportunity for me, and so I'll say yes and worry about the rest later. But emotionally, I think it was one of my friends just before I went, and she said, have fun. You're going to this lovely city. You've got some time to enjoy the city as well. You know what you're talking about. You can do this. So try and enjoy yourself, and because people will see that, they will see if you're doing your best and having fun, that will convey something on its own, and then the value, the words will add to that. But start in that positive position of, this is going to be fun, and tell yourself that. And it was. She was right.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really happy that, as you say, we always worry. We tend to preoccupy, to be preoccupied when it really is never as bad as we always make, these scenarios of things going wrong. And I think that's our brain trying to protect us, which is natural. But yeah, I also find that always the experiences are very positive, and you can always learn from it, even when you make a small mistake, because it's normal, it's part of the learning process. And I imagine that you feel now really proud of yourself, what you have achieved.
Yeah, I was happy, but I also realized that some of the things we tell ourselves are not helpful. Like, I've got a big I need to work on my relationship with mistakes, I think, because I always tell my students, it's okay to make mistakes, and I do believe that. I'm not just telling them that, but then I don't take my advice. So then I saw at the conference that, yeah, I did make a nothing huge, but a couple of small grammar mistakes, but people weren't really interested in whether I made a couple of small grammar mistakes. They wanted to know the answer to the question. And I knew that intellectually, but I think I saw that working out in reality when I was there, because I noticed, I'm sure some of the other people will have noticed, but nobody cared, I would say, because the focus was on the content and the information. And it probably helped that it was a mixed group, and I wasn't the only non-native speaker. I've worked in a German team before where I was, and I guess I always felt a bit more under pressure there. But in this group, there were lots of people who didn't have German as a first language, and so I felt a bit more in the same situation. But nobody was judging, and that's the same for anyone else. If you go and present something or participate in something, anyone who's just looking for mistakes, it's not a very fun person to be around, are they? They're not going to be a great addition to your network, because most people just want to build relationships and to learn. So that's the thing to focus on.
Yes, we are our worst judge, let's say. Yes, we are very demanding with ourselves, and if you think of it, you never judge people as harsh as you judge yourself. And so just imagine that what I do sometimes, and I imagine if a friend of mine had done, have made the same mistake that I made, will I be? No, I will be like, come on, that's normal, So I try to do this exercise with myself as well, just not to be more understanding towards me, because as you see, I've made many mistakes so far, and that's fine, because as you say, people are interested in what you have to say, and not in checking every single mistake that you make. That's normal. We are not a native speaker, and sooner or later you'll make a mistake, and that's just, you are used to hearing people that are not native, so that's fine. And I also wanted to ask you, because this conversation that we're having today came out of an article that I wrote on LinkedIn, and you comment on it. So my second part of the questions will be, there are also, challenges that you take on, like this trip to Vienna that you did, this presentation, and you are just decided, am I going to take it, am I not, and you consider. But then there's also, when we are in the process, when we already took on a challenge, and we've been putting a lot of effort in, a lot of sometimes money as well, and time, and we need to decide, are we going to continue, are we going to not? And I know that you have also an experience, and you could tell us also this story of a course that you took, and you decided after a while that no, this is not something that you wanted to continue on.
Yeah, because I think it's always a balance. Like I'm not somebody that changes my mind a lot if I've committed to something. So if I say I'm going to do something, then I do it. But sometimes that can be a problem because things change. You don't have all the same information that you had when you made that decision. So for me, I started doing the course and found that some of the information wasn't massively relevant to me. There were some issues with accessibility as well. I found that I wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I would. And this was hard because part of it was paid for, and obviously I wouldn't get my money back for what I'd done. I wouldn't expect to, but the decision was whether to continue with the next part of it, which would then need to be paid for. And every time I thought about it, I just thought, oh, but it was more like, oh, I don't want to, other people knew I was doing the course, and I didn't want to say, oh, actually, I felt like it was saying I failed. But it was, I decided that there was something better. So when I finally decided that I wasn't going to continue with it, I felt such a sense of relief. And that's what I connected with in your post, because you mentioned that, do you feel when you decided not to continue with this thing that isn't working for you, do you feel relieved and kind of happy? And the only thing is, oh, what people are going to say now. I think sometimes when we say no to things, we feel bad about it, but it's also a way of saying yes to something. Because if you don't say, if you keep doing the thing that you don't want to do, you don't have any space or capacity for new things. And I think that's what the biggest takeaway I had from the experience was that, okay, that they gave me some money back. You could say that I lost some in that I started the course, but it's also that I found out that wasn't the right course for me. But at the same time, I started becoming interested in learning a new language, which is also a course. And that's also quite hard at the beginning. Right at the beginning of a new language, you don't know anything and you feel like a 2-year-old. You can't communicate very well. But for me, it wasn't. So I started doing that instead and putting more attention into learning Romanian, because this was around last summer. So that's when I started doing that. And I found that saying no to this thing that wasn't serving me, that wasn't bringing me happiness, also freed up a lot of time to say yes to something that turned out to be a lot more valuable. So I'm glad I took the courage to kind of go back on that initial decision, because it meant that I had then time and resources to do something that I'm really enjoying. In fact, a year in, I'm probably enjoying it more, because I can understand more, I can talk to people, I can even start to use the language at work, which I thought would take me a lot longer. So looking back, it was a really good decision to finish the first course, because it gave me all this capacity to do something which I do enjoy. And I don't know if we enjoy things more that we find easier, or if we work harder at the things that we like more, but either way, it's been a much better decision for me to do that.
Exactly. Well, talking about language, you have the word in English, you have the word quitter, and quitters don't win, and blah blah blah. But you don't have a word for, or I don't know of a word that defines someone who's takes a stand and say, hey, let's reevaluate. Is this still, relevant for me. So we get a lot of pressure on keep going, keep going, keep going, and do whatever it takes. But sometimes, as you say, the smarter thing to do and the right thing to do is to just reevaluate, sometimes just take a break and consider, is this still what I want to do? Is this still valuable for me? Or could I be doing something else, what you said? Because when you say no to something, as you just said, you're saying yes to something else, and you are growing. And that's the most difficult thing to do sometimes, just to stop, to take that decision.
Or to change, so you could you could completely change direction like I did with learning something else, or you could just think about, maybe your goal hasn't changed, but maybe the way that you want to achieve that goal needs to change because what you're doing at the moment isn't working for you. Maybe because I did spend some time like learning on my own with the Romanian, but that doesn't really work at the beginning because you need some input. I was doing a course after that, but so it could be that you've been trying to do something in a specific way and it's not working for you, or you're not enjoying. So you could find it a different way to do the same thing. Yes. Just try something new. If you're not getting the results that you want, then try a different approach, and maybe it will work out better for you.
Yes, exactly. And so now I'm just curious. So I know that you are, of course, English. You're fluent. You're native English. Then I know that you're also native you're fluent in German. And then you also have Turkish and Romanian.
Turkish has been a bit neglected. I understand quite well, but I don't really speak Turkish anymore because I'm focusing on the Romanian. And it's,
yes, I understand. But like, what makes you choose each language? Because they are a bit, how can I say, exotic. Like they are not the typical ones that everybody will be trying to learn, I think.
Yeah, they can be different. German was easy because it was my second language at school, so I had to learn French. And sorry to any French speakers, but I passed the exams. I did quite well, but then I didn't use it again. I just didn't have that same connection. But I did with German, and so that was my first real interest in languages. Turkish was because I was working with people in Germany, and there are quite a lot of Turkish people in Germany too. So some of the people that I was working with also spoke Turkish. We used German to communicate, but I knew that they spoke Turkish as well. And then I was curious. I went on holiday to Turkey, and I liked it there, so I decided to learn Turkish. But in time, I kind of lost contact with some of the people that was relevant for. And for me, I think language and relationships with people are really closely connected. I can't just do it as an academic exercise to learn some information. It has to be useful to communicate with people. So when I moved away and when I lost contact with some of my Turkish friends, my motivation to learn the Turkish didn't continue it. It kind of my attention went elsewhere. And with Romanian, it was very spontaneous. It was very surprising. I was looking for another language to learn, but I hadn't decided which one. And I went to a business networking meeting, and the first two people there, or who were friendly and who made me feel welcome, were Romanian. I thought, okay, maybe I'll learn the language then, because I knew that there were some other meetings in Romanian, networking meetings. I thought it would take me a very long time to be ready for those. I have since attended some. I'm not as fluent as I would like to be, but it's moved quite quickly. I have put a lot of work into it as well because it's something that I enjoy. But I think now what motivates me is the friendships that I found and people with whom I can use the language, as well as the obvious advantages to having another language at work, for example. I do intend to do more with it at work in the next year. And that's exciting. But initially it was the people that made me interested to learn something new. Not that I necessarily used what I'd learned with them immediately because I was quite shy. So, but it's getting easier now, and I found that people are generally, if you learn a language that that isn't one of the languages that people learn at school, for example, people are happy when they discover that you're interested in learning the language.
Yes, 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 yes. So yeah, that's yeah, I didn't think that was your motivation, but it makes perfect sense. Yes. So because you are able to speak German, you can really help more your German students, and I imagine that you might take some Romanian students then that are trying
Yeah,
to improve their English. Yes.
absolutely.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to people of who speak any language, but with the languages that I speak, I am probably able to give a bit more support because I can translate words, I can try to explain something in the other language if that's useful, or I can see how some of the typical mistakes are made because I can understand how you think in the other language. So we can point out the differences. Okay, English is like this, but German's like this, or Romanian's like this.
Yeah.
And I don't have that knowledge in all of the other languages that are
Yes.
spoken by my customers.
Do you find do you find that people coming from a certain language, they tend to make the same mistakes? I do, in the sense of, for example, Czech. I am based in Prague, in the Czech Republic, and the Czech language doesn't have articles, so it doesn't have like the table, a table. It doesn't work like that. So when they are speaking English, they always mix the and a, and they don't know when is, when is the one to use or the other ones. And funny enough, in Indonesia, because I've worked in Australia for many years, and many of my students were Indonesians, they have the same thing. They don't have articles. So I can see that in both, look how different they are, and but they actually make very similar mistakes. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but it makes sense as well, because if you always have to think, if you don't have to think about, having an article, or if you have a language like in English, we have two present tenses, and if your first language doesn't, then you always have to think, well, as you get used to it, you don't have to think that, but at the beginning you have to think, which one is it then, because there are two in English and I only have one. So yeah, it's or things like if you've been doing something for a while, like I've been learning Romanian for 1 year in English, I have been learning, it's a form of the past tense because it started in the past, but in some languages, well, I am learning because I'm still doing it. So, it's trying to think in the new language, and sometimes that's hard at the beginning. You forget things. That's the same for me when I'm speaking my other languages where there are differences.
Yes, I really like also learning different languages because it tells you a lot about the culture as well. Just there are languages that they have a formal. When you talk to somebody you don't know, you use the verb in different ways, and English doesn't have this, for example, and it tells you a lot of what is behind, and I love that about it as well.
And the culture, it just reminded me, yesterday I went with some Romanian friends we found a Romanian restaurant in the UK, the first one that I've been to, and food, that if you understand, you can learn about a culture through food as well, and through sharing food with people who know that food. I think it was a much better experience going there with somebody who knew what to recommend, or who could say something about the dishes, and it was just a really good experience to do that. Because you learn about cultures through food as well.
Yes. Yeah, I think it'll be a great class. Imagine, learn Romanian, going to a restaurant, come every Friday for 2 hours. It'll be wonderful.
I would go.
That will work, yeah. Because you actually will learn and enjoy at the same time, and because you have all these tastes and smells, and you will actually remember more because you are using all your senses.
And it's delicious.
Yes. Okay, Kirsty, is there anything else you would like to talk about? I'm not too sure. Would you like to mention something?
No, I think it was nice to be led by you and to find out what you wanted to know. It's very different for me because usually I'm the person asking the questions and doing the interviews. So yeah, thank you for switching it around a bit today, and for finding some questions for me.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to what you mentioned in the beginning. So your conversations, your conversations groups that start next month. I'm going to be there
Yeah,
in the
that's great.
entrepreneurs group. Yes.
And if anyone else is interested, then have a look at the information online, englishwithkirsty.com/conversations. The first 3 participations are free, so come and see if you like it, or maybe try a couple of groups if they're relevant to you, maybe general conversation or entrepreneurs, or if you're an employee, there's a group for you as well. Yeah, and come and see if you like it, see if it will help you to maybe go out of your comfort zone. If you're somebody that doesn't enjoy spontaneous speaking, this could be something that might help you to get out of your comfort zone as well.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kirsty. It was great.
Thank you. See you soon, and hope everyone has a good week. And we'll be back next week with the next episode of English with Kirsty.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.